I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why these things keep happening. I don't know why they keep spreading to other people. I've tried so many times to build a team to try to understand. And regardless of the setbacks, progress was made, but the story continued to get stranger. I think it's about time I go in. I go deep. This is the audio logs for the curious case of Dakota Frandsen. I don't know if you're going to believe what I'm about to say. Quite frankly, I stopped caring a long time ago. Today is June 11th, 2022. The time now is currently 12:15 a.m. I know this is probably early for most of you that will be listening to this. But to be honest, I'm usually up at this time anyway, due to my civilian job work schedule. I do hope that this new operation with Bonkers takes off and I can turn that into my full-time job. But until that's the case, I have to deal with these time zone differences. These awkward nights. My name is Dakota Frandsen. Several people know me as a specialist of the strange. And quite frankly, many have seen that is the title I live up to. I don't know why that is. The title in itself just started out as a bit of a joke. Same thing with the naming behind Bonkers. But it just took on a new life. Or maybe that's how it was meant to be all along. I don't know. What I do know is that my situation continues to evolve. And this is the only way I know to try to document my experiences as they happen. There are some who will try to say that my tendencies, that's a good way to put it, my tendencies to lead more towards creative arts would be a sign that I'm lying. Quite frankly, I don't blame them for that assumption. Were this happening to anybody else? I question it too. And there have been people who have backstabbed me. People who knew how deeply ingrained these matters are to me. Tried to say I was fake. Tried to say I was lying. And tried to rally the troops like a bunch of teenage girls to prove their point. Even though, quite frankly, they have no clue what the hell they're actually doing. The views in this are going to be uncensored. So if you're the type that gets easily offended, easily confused, or just that small-minded, I highly advise you turn this off right now. I'm trying to understand what's happening to me. I've gone to doctors, I've gone to psychologists, and even they admit that this is something unusual. And unfortunately, the progress of these events require medical testing equipment that, one, I cannot afford on current budgets. Two, this whole argument of why aren't there more photos, more videos, being that everyone nowadays has access to some sort of a camera. It's a valid argument, but what they fail to realize is the human connection behind it, the human emotion. UFOs aren't just going to sit in one spot. Creatures of the night, animals perhaps not yet discovered or once thought extinct, they ain't going to stay in one place for long. Even those most skeptic of it, the most qualified to speak against the topic, have to question it. Have to question their own small-minded approaches, let's put it that way. But if there wasn't something to this, why would NASA just release that they are forming an independent team to look into UFO sightings? This isn't going to be a tape to discuss government conspiracy and all that will deviate from the intention of this program. That would deviate from the intentions too far. However, he goes to show that there's something to this. And if by some miraculous chance, admitting that the odds of the things I'm talking about actually taking place are so astronomically slim, on the off chance that there's something to it, that there's something real, I have to know. This is my plea. Those of you who find this, those of you who listen to this may not believe a word I say. You may not know me, you may question everything I go to say, and I don't blame you. But just know this, regardless of your stance, regardless of what you feel about me, and I say that in particular because I've noticed a strict pattern lately that those who try to speak out against me in particular don't like the fact that I've called them out. Bridges have mended where they are intended to, and I feel that certain events will lead all parties involved to a better outcome that suits all parties individually, if that made any sense whatsoever. And I apologize for my yawning. Finally had time to start digging into this, because seems that a majority of the so-called paranormal community have this idea that if you don't post every little fart on YouTube, you just sit around in the fucking corner all day doing nothing. It's ridiculous. But nevertheless, still doesn't change how I feel about this. This has clearly been a part of my life for so long. I have to go deeper. I have to understand why it's happening. And there is no one I can really trust in doing this. There's no one I can trust. Nearly every party that is coming forward, even though they have been helpful in some way, several of them try to take notice, take control of the situation, turn it into their favor, trying to boost their ego, trying to say that, oh, they're all knowing. And that is a person I can't trust. The greatest testament of ignorance is the claim that you know everything. And I stand by that notion and encourage everybody to keep that in mind. So I guess, instead of just rambling on, I should start from the beginning. And by some chance, if she happens to hear this, I would truly like to thank Elena Denon for her help in this. If there's been anybody who's been helpful in understanding what's going on, it's her. And I'm honored to be able to call such an intelligent woman a dear friend. And I hope the winds carry us to where we get to meet in person one day, so I can give thanks more appropriately. And for those curious, look her up, read her books. That'll make a little bit more sense of why I say that. So how do I begin? The extraterrestrial phenomenon isn't something that, there was at one point I didn't give this much consideration. Not that I didn't believe in it. The concept of being alone in the universe just seems mathematically impossible. But the variations of life on Earth, we have to assume that there are an infinite number of possibilities with what could potentially be out there. We have life forms here on Earth that can live inside volcanoes. There are life forms here on Earth that can live without light, live without food, live without water. Naturally, they find other ways to gain essential nutrients by other means than what is traditionally known by science, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. And for the argument of flat Earth, well, let's just say those people, there's a lot of people going about right now who only follow certain concepts because they want to rebel. They want to rebel. But they don't know what to rebel against. They know that the system is tied against them, but exactly in what ways, they're not exactly sure. The title of Specialists of the Strange, like I said, came up initially as a joke. The full title being Specialists of the Strange and Fucked Up. Because a dear friend of mine made a little clip that seems like anytime something weird or something intense, extreme is going on, I somehow had some affiliation with it. Whether or not that's a good thing, I'll let you be the judge. I started out investigating the paranormal at the age of 14. I was fairly tall, always got mistaken as being older than my age. And no, while yes, I may have not necessarily eaten well or exercised right like I should, that's something that runs through my mother's side of the family. That we get mistaken as older until we reach a certain point. From what I've seen, it's about our mid-20s where we start to level out before we start showing, wrinkles and all that by our 40s. So it's not that bad, all things considered. But that's beside the point. I started looking into ghosts after an encounter at the old Idaho State Penitentiary where I saw what looked like a man being hung in death row. Obviously, the old Idaho State Penitentiary is now a historical society. People didn't believe me that I saw something. And that was partially my fault due to the fact that I was a bit of a prankster at the time. And I'll admit, I'm not above trying to spook somebody just for my own enjoyment, even till today. I didn't mean any harm by it, just keeping things lively, I guess. It wasn't until about a year later when the Travel Channel series Ghost Adventures came through town to film episodes for their first season and went to the old Idaho State Penitentiary where they caught an apparition that looked like the man I saw. And upon their historical review, for lack of a better word, I found out it was Raymond Stone, a man who was essentially labeled the state of Idaho's version of Jack the Ripper. But that wasn't my first paranormal experience. I was about the age of 9 when that happened. I was one of those kids who always seemed to know things that you shouldn't. Seemed to talk to things that weren't there. My late grandfather, he was one of the first to notice that something was off with me. He noticed that I could tell, mind you, I would have be like age 2, 3, just barely old enough to talk, that I would be able to tell when certain people were about to call before the phone started ringing. I just seemed to know things. As I got into the paranormal and life experiences which took place around that time frame, which involved my father going to prison for sexually assaulting one of my sisters, I wasn't around for that. Reconnecting with long-lost family members, I discovered that apparently it was going on even longer than that. I discovered that it's a bit of a family curse, for lack of a better word. And old babysitters even said they noticed strange things around me, but didn't necessarily thought of it. Which included the fact that I had a wife in space, or a wife in heaven. I seemed to alternate between the two. that notion is something that should be kept in mind. Before I continue, I'm just going to make note of my current surroundings right now. Because we are at 60, 70 degree nights, I do have both a box fan and a ceiling fan going right now, just to get some air circulation and I'm not sweating like a pig. So that's where a majority of the background noise is coming from. You may also get occasional interference from the neighbor's dogs. Or you may hear my neighbors, you never know. As it always seems like whenever I try to do these sorts of projects, there's other voices that try to come through. I'll try to make note of everything. In order to help monitor the situations, I have a few of my tools around me. The first being a plasma ball, which can serve as an EMF pump. Allegedly, this will help spirits, ETs, what have you, get a bit of a jump start if they want to try to interact with me, try to talk. So I highly suggest that if you haven't done so already, put in a good pair of earphones. I also have a K2 meter to monitor for EMF spikes positioned at a spot where there's minimal interference, as well as a cat ball that's supposed to light up if something touches it. I don't know what the fascination with those are lately, but some people I respect and admire greatly in this community utilize them, so I figured I'd give myself some of my own just to see what would happen. The purpose of this audio log is to allow myself to think freely as much as possible without having to worry about seeing things on camera. Every now and then I might stop. You may notice a bit of a stutter from time to time, based on previous this is something I should elaborate on in another episode. But based on previous projects, pay attention around those times. Because I do feel something here with without going too much into further detail of my ghost hunting life. During the 2020 pandemic, I had a brief tenure with an organization who claimed to be wanting to legitimize paranormal research. And they noticed quite quickly that I had quite a bit of activity that seemed to center around me. There's video footage out there of me performing an exorcism after an entity which we were researching at the time attacked us. It didn't necessarily like that we were talking about it. But eagle-eyed viewers have noticed the second my name was mentioned. It flinched. I don't know if that footage is going to survive, but I've done my best to preserve a copy of it for myself, for research purposes, for reference for other projects that are currently in the works, including a book collaboration with a dear friend of mine, who has also been a great help for these events. During this time, I also helped look into cases that seemed to be too weird or too extreme or required a lot more knowledge base than just your average spirit, which included UFOs. It was something that came to me naturally. I could identify probable causes for possible activity quicker than most people. There was a brief time period where I allowed my personal emotions and personal connections, or what I thought were personal connections, cloud my judgments. I left, but to which I had been frequently requested back due to the fact that this type of subject came so naturally to me. It is in these events that I was forced, for lack of a better word, to look back at my own life and admit things that I had never admitted to anyone before. Some of you who have followed me for a while, if not, I'll give a brief introduction to the story. Know that there was an incident where I tried to take my own life, but a little girl saved me. A little girl who may or may not be my daughter. And after this encounter with the entity that tried to kill us, mind you, it moved across the UK, Canada, part of Texas, then here in Idaho, thousands of miles within a matter of seconds. It was after this I learned that the little girl, my daughter, was visiting other people, and they even managed to catch audio proof. The main reason they realized that they made the connection after they heard the story, some of them didn't know it at the time, was because they realized this little girl was practically a spitting image of me. A psychic medium friend of mine, who I've met through doing the talk shows like Bonkers. Her name is Lisa Fry. She has also offered her assistance in doing a regression therapy session to see what we could dig up. I showed a computerized rendering based on the eyewitness testimonies of my daughter. Essentially, it's similar to the technology they use to age progress missing persons photos, but it's now available on phone apps. I was able to utilize artificial intelligence to create an image of my daughter that was close enough for me to get emotional when the rendering was done, just to say the least. Upon viewing this image, the first words out of her mouth were, "Oh, she's Pleiadian." That the mother figure I've spent 13 years trying to look for may not even be from this planet. Oh, and about a month after that encounter, there was a possible abduction scenario where I was taken to what looked like a hospital room, where I saw the little girl, her mother, lying in a bed together while the mother was holding a baby boy. The little girl looks at me, smiles, and says, "Daddy, come meet my new baby brother." So I may have a daughter and a son out there. Son who seems to slowly be getting into his abilities, however, isn't as much of a people person as his mother and sister are. Now some of you may be wondering what the hell's going on. how the hell could I have hybrid children? Was I abducted? Did they take my DNA? In a way, possibly. Elena Denon's book, Gift from the Stars, has a bit of a guidebook to extraterrestrial species. The Pleiadians apparently are quite sexual beings, and while they do have the technology for artificial insemination, artificial birth, technology that we humans are barely getting a grasp on to help those with fertility problems. While they do have that technology and that's readily available to them, they strongly prefer the old-fashioned methods. And while there was finally slow down, Dakota. There was finally a chance, a direct line of communication with the mother, to which she said, now this may be a mistranslation. Think of it as like when you're trying to talk with someone say you're having a conversation with someone where English is a secondary language to them. They have a good grasp of it, but sometimes they forget what words they want to use in English. So they try to think of something that would be close to what they were originally meaning. Think of it like that, in that framework. Upon a conversation with this woman, she told me she was my wife. Apparently, reincarnation is here in the mix. Oh, and should also be noted that one of the incidents that until recently I've been afraid to really talk about, just because of how crazy it sounds, unless I absolutely trusted somebody. There was a point when I was 5 years old, summertime, I went to bed at my mother's house, then woke up 30 miles away, thankfully at my grandparents'. Now, this may sound like maybe my mom or my dad just dropped me off there because of my mom's work schedule, I did stay with my grandparents quite a bit, so maybe they just dropped me off for babysitting and I was just asleep through the ordeal, which I don't blame you. There's been some who question whether or not that was a sleepwalking method. Mind you, some sort of sleepwalking episode. Mind you, I will admit, yes, sleepwalking is a bit of a issue. However, I was 5 years old at the time and managed to make it sorry, sounds like the cat's fucking around. Anyway, you gotta remember, I was only 5 years old. Somehow I ended up in a locked house with locked windows, my grandparents having absolutely no idea I was there. The family pets at the time, my grandparents didn't know I was there. And my mother? Well, she was the one that dropped me off Why would she be calling them the next morning saying I've been kidnapped? I'll say, well, who is it? Then you probably ask what about my father. My father wasn't exactly in the picture. There was situations of abuse there that almost took my life in a couple of instances. One being my stepmother stabbing me in the back of the neck with a ballpoint pen, and I stabbed her back with a 6-inch butcher knife that she slapped into my hand. My father was one of those dominant types that tried to say that his kids are his kids and he should be able to do his own as he pleases. However, he was an abusive prick, and like I said, he is currently serving a potential life sentence in prison for sexually assaulting one of my sisters. Not a nice guy. My grandparents that I turned up at were my mother's parents. It's not likely that he would drop off a kid. He would drop off his son with... I'm sorry. Brain's kind of right now, but it's not likely that he would drop off the kid he just took was someplace where his mother can get him back easy, now would he? And during communication sessions where I utilized a spirit box and on occasion CE5 protocols developed by Dr. Stephen Greer, I asked about that situation. And the message that came across was death, death, death. So I really need to go in deeper to find out what the hell's going on. What it is, I'm scared to find out. But in talking with Elena Denon, she recommended me a recall course that was put together by Tony Rodriguez and a psychic medium. I can't remember her name right now. Yes, I'm trying to delay slightly to pull up the website. There it is. There's the recall course with Tony and psychic medium Jackie Kenner, which I have enrolled in, and will be documenting my experiences. That's the introduction to this temporary series. I don't know how many episodes it'll be. It'll just be recorded as I go. And yeah, that's the situation. So, next episode, I don't know when it's going to come out. I will be elaborating further on what I know about the ET connection, the evidence I have, as much as I can provide at this time, as well as the work I've already done to try to put this together, to try to understand more. Whether or not you choose to believe these statements, that is up to you. This is something I'm doing for myself. It is something I am publicizing so that maybe it just might help somebody else. Those are my intentions. I will also try to keep all my equipment nearby just in case something decides to make itself known. My name is Dakota Frandsen, and I am the one and only specialist of the strange. Stay tuned, y'all. It's about to get weird.